Alright, welcome to the studio. So tonight I thought we'd paint a nice, cute little bluebird here. I'm just going to go ahead and get started. Obviously I'm doing a voiceover for this one, so I have previously drawn my bird on my paper. I should say I am using Strathmore 400 series paper. I like it a lot. It's pretty tough. It takes a beating. If you want to rub something off or scrub something out, it holds up to it. It holds water real well, doesn't buckle. Anyways, enough of that. Here's what I'm doing. I'm mixing a little bit of gamboge with a little bit of pyrrole red, I believe, and just putting that in. I'm going to try to paint this bird in one shot, in one take. We're going to see how that goes. Hopefully he will cooperate with us and dry when I need it to, and stay wet when I need him to also. Alright, just moving into a little phthalo blue there, up on top of his head. And I'm hoping by doing this all in one take and looking at it without stopping, that it is going to force me to paint what's in front of me, to recognize the colors I need, and to put them on the paper in the proper way, with the proper amount of moisture, I should say, as I dab off a spot that's a little too wet. So just let me run through. I think I'm going to be using in here gamboge yellow. I'm going to be using, I already said, phthalo blue, quinacridone red, a little pyrrole red, and I believe I'm going to be using a little bit of yellow ochre for the post that he's sitting on, but we'll get to that in just a minute. There, I'm dipping into a little maroon color in there. And just going back to his head, I'm trying to look at the picture and look at the bird and judge all at the same time how dark the bird is on the page and how dark it is on my painting, what I need to get there, and whether I need to add a lot of color to it at one point in time, or whether I can come back and add color when I add a little bit more detail later on. So as you can see, I've got the wing of the bird and the crest of his head painted in there. I'm going to paint in a little bit of his underbelly. It's a bit gray and a bit ochre-y at the same time. It's not a cold color, but it is definitely a winter gray-ish, but a warm gray. All right, just mixing my colors here, and this is going to be for his chest there, his breast, and that little stripe right there just on the back of his neck. And I have previously painted this. I just need to intensify that color a little bit. I'll probably end up going back and doing it again later on, but we can see it there. And dipping back in. This is a little burnt umber. I'm mixing with my blue. It'll darken it down just a little bit. And dipping in there in my phthalo blue. And here we go, just on the right around that beak and on the top of his head. And each time I go over this, what I'm trying to think about is not necessarily just blocking in color, but putting in a color with the form. So I'm going over it, and whether that be going over it to create a roundness. Oh, what am I trying to say? Go over it to do a graded wash, which would show a little bit of roundness, but also to give form in his wings if I need to put on a flight feather or something, to do that at the same time. So here we are. I mix a little bit of ochre in here, and I'm pulling that down for our stump. We're going to get to quite a bit of that. Mixing in a little bit of orange oxide with that ochre color. And here I'm painting the top of this perch, and I'm I am kind of cheating. I'm not painting the snow in here, but it is a cold day for this guy. And the top of this post is also going to give the outline of his belly, of his stomach down there on the bottom of him. There we go. And just blocking in a general shape. Also starting to pull down some lines on that stump to give it some cracks and crevices in there. All right, right back up to his head. I want to make sure I don't paint where his eye is at. So I'm going to lift a little bit of that color out so as not to go right in there. All right, mixing up a little color here, an orange and burnt umber, a little bit of ochre. Back to my maroon now. I'm just going to give a little swab there, just a little line, indication of his beak. We'll come back and touch that up in just a little bit. But there we go. And now I need to let it dry for just a second so I can see what I need to do. Okay. I can mix up a little bit of, well, this is a cobalt violet. And I'm going into, quinacridone rose. Back to my violet. Just getting a nice pinky purple hue here. I'm going to darken it down just a little bit. And I'm going to I'm going to do the outline of the bird by painting the background. And I don't want to keep the background one color. I've got my colors pretty well mixed in my palette. But I'm going to throw in some of the other colors I'm working at just to give some activity to the background. And I'm hoping that I'm going to not make my background so dark that it overshadows the bird. I want my background to be lighter than the color of the bird so that the bird stands out, really kind of jumps off the page. Now, if I wanted the bird to really, really jump off the page, I would paint the background a complementary color to the color of the bird. That would really make the bird stand up, but I'm trying to be a little bit more true to the picture that I'm painting from, so you can see what I'm doing there. I'm just continuing to mix my gray color and dabble it on. I've got a lot of color there, so I can go quite a long way with it. I should say I am using my Utrecht brush right here. It's a big brush. I believe it's a size 10. It's got faux sable bristles on it. It's actually quite a nice brush. And here we go, just being careful, trying to paint on the left-hand side of an object with your right hand, for me, is quite difficult. But I'm managing to get by with it. There, just ever so gently right down there, and continuing every time I go back to my palette. I just want to adjust my colors a little bit. I don't need to do it a super lot, but if you look back on the parts I've previously painted of my background, you can see there's a lot of action there. There's a lot going on. It's not just a static color back there. And I think that adds a lot to the painting in the end. There's a lot of motion going on back there. There we go. So I'm going to darken up the bird a little bit more as we go along. I think this background is going to lighten, and it'll be pretty nice. It'll fade into the background, which will be great because it is the background, and it's not too much. So we'll leave it the way it is, and let's get back to painting our bird. Now he's had a little bit of time to dry, So it won't run together quite so much, and I can come in and give a little bit more of the details. So this time when I go back, I'm going to really start to define the shapes a little bit more, and I'm look at his head, see what I can do there to give it form and definition. And I'm not trying to be a slave to the picture. I'm not trying to duplicate the picture. I'm trying to get the essence of that picture out and onto my paper. So if it doesn't seem like I'm following exactly, there's a good reason for that. The reason is I'm not following it exactly. I'm using it as a reference, as an inspiration photo, and we'll take it from there and make something beautiful from it. All right, I'm just taking away a little bit of the hard edges on the head of this bird. And let's see, darkening up under his chin just a little bit. You can see in the reference photo his chest is pretty dark there. I don't know that I need to make it quite that dark in my photo, or in my painting, but I definitely want to darken it up at least a little bit and just give the little indications of a little bit of texture up there around his chest, and we'll go from there. All right, and adding a little definition underneath his wing. Right there, a little dark next to the light of his wing makes that wing stand off that page just a little bit more. Okay, let me come back in to my brown color, and I'm going to let the bird dry a little bit. I'm going to start adding just a little bit of detail to the wooden beam that he's on. And the left side of this really is in a pretty deep shadow, so I don't mind if I put a lot of color on that side. I don't have a lot on at the moment, but I'll get to it and put a bit more on there, just going vertical lines up and down, adding a little bit of detail to this post. There we go. It's starting to look post-ish. And of course, on the top of it, we need to add a little bit of color also. Just grab a little bit off my palette. There we go. And just pull it out. He's casting a little bit of a shadow on there in my world. We'll just go back into my maroon color. A little bit of yellow ochre. Load up my brush and just continue to add a few flecks and cracks here and there on that wood. Just really bring that to life. There we go, there we go. And each time adding a little bit onto that left-hand side, really darkening that up. There we go. I don't have to add any all the way at the end of that, but if I do, it'll just make it pop off the back a little bit more than it does now. All right. And you know, you can't paint a stump like this without having some wood grain on the end of it, so I'm just going to give the indication of a little bit of grain there. I can imagine seeing some of it if the snow wasn't covering that stump. So there we go. We'll put a little bit on there. Now, just going to continue to mix a little bit of color, and I'm going to put some color on the bottom half of his beak right there, the part that really is in the shade. Really is in the shade. Well, it's underneath this top beak anyway. I think we can all see how that could happen. And just a little line on the top that he can breathe through on that beak. A little indentation on there. And now I'm going to mix up just a little bit. This is Payne's Gray along with burnt umber. It's making a little bit of a dark mixture. And guess where it's going? You got it. Right on his eye. And I'm giving him a pretty small eye. Normally I would try to leave a white spot there. I don't know that I'm going to be able to do that on this painting. I think I'm going to have to go back with white later on and put a dot of it in his eye, or maybe with a white pencil or a white pen and put that on. Something to give a little highlight and a little life to his eye. Alright, so I've mixed a little bit of a warm color here. And I want to bring that color down almost to his backside there. Just the transition. I know I have a hard line of my kind of orangey color. I'm going to put a little bit of that warmer color down there. And I think I'll mix a little bit of that gray in with it. Would be real nice. But we need to warm him up a little bit. He seemed a little too cold. Alright. Just going in under that wing. Just adding a little detail here and there. Just little lines. Little bits to give a little texture and to indicate a feather here and there. Alright, I'm going to paint his flight feathers on here. I should say I've switched to a Windsor and Newton brush now. This is a small size 2 brush. Also quite nice. And just going over, looking at the picture and seeing what direction his feathers point, and just dabbing on some lines in that direction on my painting. When you get these on and you look at it from 3 feet away, it's going to look just like feathers all stacked up on his wing. It's going to be great. Darkening up just around that beak, trying to give a little bit of roundness to his head, I guess is the best way to say it. Make it look like his head is sitting there and not a solid flat color. So I want to add a little bit more underneath and a little bit behind right there, and hopefully that is going to give him a little bit of a round head. There we go. Something like that. We're almost done now. A couple of extra little details here and there, adding a little bit of darkness just behind his neck and a little bit of color right back there. And I think I'm just about done with this one. Just a few finishing little touches. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing me paint this bird all in one sitting. No cuts, no camera trickery, nothing of the sort. I had a great time painting here in the studio with you. I hope you had a great time painting with me. Thank you for stopping by. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope you stop by and paint with me again. I'm going to post another video real soon. Thank you so much. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.